Welcome back to the Blue Wave Sports Show. We're on the panel here. We're going to go ahead and bring up the NBA here. How do you guys feel about Dwight Howard possibly being traded?
I think it would be the smart thing for the Lakers to do. He doesn't want to stay with them. He's a free agent at the end of the season. So, honestly, I think they need to get rid of him while they have the chance and get something for him.
Yeah, I agree.
Obviously, he's not going to get another big contract like he did have in Orlando because of his injuries, and he's not seeing the ball as much. He's not playing as well. But I think for the Lakers to just let him finish out the season, injured, not injured, whatever the case, and then just have him go and sign with the team that he wants to be with would be a huge loss for them.
I definitely think that the Lakers made a mistake in trading for him because he wasn't healthy to begin with as he started the season. Now that he's already suffering through another injury with the torn labrum, going to try to play through that. I think they have no other choice but to ride it out with him because being that they already lost Bynum and they're already an old roster, they have really no other choice. I mean, they could try to get assets for him, but with Kobe aging, Nash aging, their window is kind of closing, and with the Thunder, the Grizzlies, Clippers only getting better, I think they just have to go for it. I mean, I wouldn't blame them if they traded Dwight Howard, though.
Yeah, take out the trash here. I mean, go ahead, get rid of him, let him go to another team, see what he does. But Lakers don't need him. Him being on that team is not going to make that team better this season, and that's what it's about.
I think the problem with the Lakers goes so much deeper than Dwight Howard.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
the general
Oh, yeah.
concerns with Dwight Howard, just hearing him talk about, just sitting in the chair, he feels pain and stuff like that. We had a discussion on it before the show about how immature he is. But the fact of the matter is, the Lakers are an older team, the Western Conference. You had a team like the San Antonio Spurs, by far the best team in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
You should build a team like that. And basically what the Lakers did is they built a team similar to the unsuccessful team of the 90s of the Yankees, when the Yankees just bought a bunch of stars, put them together, and expected things to work. You buy Steve Nash, you buy Dwight Howard, you take all these names, put them together, and then wonder why you're 3.5 games out of the playoff spot in the Western Conference. And it's because basketball is more of a team game. And with regards to team, just to get back to Dwight Howard, he's not a team player. He's immature.
Yeah.
He's worried about Kobe shooting too much, which to me is asinine to even, you don't tell Jordan not to shoot too much.
Yeah.
So overall, I mean, you got to get rid of him, and then I think you got to move a bunch of other pieces around, and it might even start up at the management because the Lakers are they're blowing it.
Man, I was just about to bring up management. I mean, superstars do not equal success. I mean, let's look at the Philadelphia Eagles a couple years ago when they signed all those players.
Terrell Owens, they had McNabb.
Oh, no, I'm talking about 2-3 years ago. Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. They got the corner from Oakland. Re-signed Mike Vick, all that stuff, and now look at them. Head coach is gone. They're starting fresh 3 years later.
And a problem with the Lakers, I don't even think they got the proper coach in there to begin with.
They blew it with Phil Jackson.
We talked about this before in
Yeah.
our show, how I don't think D'Antoni is the right, piece to the puzzle for them.
Right.
They need someone who can handle all these egos and personalities, and personally, I don't think he's doing that great of a job with it. And then Dwight Howard shines when he isn't surrounded by superstars. He plays his best basketball when he is the superstar.
Yeah.
When you have
He's a
him competing,
narcissist.
yeah,
He
when
needs it to be about him. When it's not, he doesn't try.
Kobe Bryant, one of the best players in the NBA.
Exactly.
All
You
time.
can't-
I'm not talking.
yeah.
I mean, in his prime, arguably the best. So for Dwight Howard, who's a sinner, to say, "Hey, Kobe,
Yeah.
don't shoot the ball."
You can take back seat, Dwight.
Yeah, I mean, how many rings does Kobe have? How many does Dwight have? I honestly think the
How many
Lakers need to
points
trade
does Dwight
him,
make? I mean, come on.
cut their losses, and just call it a wash and try to rebuild for next season.
So do we all agree that Dwight Howard needs to go here?
Yeah, and I think he
already-
needs to go in the form. I think she hit it right on the head. He needs to go in the form of a trade. You got to get rid of him and
just
get some
get what
value
you
for him
can.
before it becomes because at the end of the season it'll turn into a debacle.
Yeah, because he's not going to re-sign with the Lakers because he wants to win now. And just like you mentioned, the whole immature thing, I don't think he realizes that it takes time. You need to build players. It takes draft picks, trades. There's a lot that goes into a winning team. And, I mean, look what happened with Miami. They didn't win the championship their first year. They got some other key players, built a team. The next season they were successful. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah,
I don't
there you
think he understands that.
Yeah, this isn't the case for the Lakers. That wouldn't even happen just because the attitudes and egos we've been talking about. That wouldn't work.
So you disagree. Do you think that they should try to talk Dwight into re-signing with the Lakers?
Yes, as we all know, Dwight is very immature. So by the day, there's no telling whether he may think that, you know what, I may want to stay in LA. I love the weather out here. Kobe
He's coming
Bryant,
from Orlando.
Lakers, you know. Well, that's true. He is coming from Orlando, but I mean, like we've mentioned, he's very immature. So by the day, his thoughts may change, and he may want to stay in LA. I think that you should definitely ride it out with him, because I think you should trade Pau Gasol though. Should trade Pau Gasol because I think he has more value than Dwight Howard, being that he has a few more years on his contract, and keep Dwight for the time being. But I too think he's going to be gone at the end of the season now. But I would still keep him just in case.
Yeah, he's definitely a risk. I mean, he's not a player you want to bet on. Not really that much consistency. But let's turn to college basketball now. We have the number 1 team, Indiana, versus Florida Gators, number 2. Who are you guys thinking is the best team?
Come back to me. I'm still thinking about it.
I think it's the Florida Gators. I mean, both of these teams only have 2 losses on the season. The Gators have won 10 games in a row, most of those games by 25, 30 points. Against decent SEC teams, you could always make the argument, the Big Ten versus the SEC, different types of basketball, better skill level, either one way or the other. But the fact of the matter is that Florida actually, in the odds makers' perspectives, which if you want to look at spreads and stuff like that, Florida's covered the spread 11 out of the last 12 games, which means despite the fact that they're moving,
means they live up to the hype.
Yeah, they're moving the spread, trying to get people to go the other way, and Florida is still covering. So whereas Indiana went 6 out of their last 10 games without covering the spread. So I really just think the Gators are on a roll, and I wouldn't be surprised they win all the way to the national championship.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Gators. Yeah, based on everything Bugsy was just saying. And another thing I look at is where Indiana is at in the Big Ten. And I feel like a lot of Big Ten teams could knock them off. Ohio State, Michigan, teams like that. I mean, you know, I don't know. But at the same time, I don't see anybody in the SEC knocking off Florida Gators.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's what I'm
I definitely have to say Indiana. They play in the tougher conference in the Big Ten, where you have Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Minnesota, Illinois. There's definitely a lot more depth, and they play much more better teams. 2 losses. They lost on a game-winning shot to Butler pretty much on a whim. I mean, can't fault them for that. I definitely like Tyler Zeller, too, who's a national player consideration. Florida is a good team in itself, but they lost to Arizona, and they don't face a tough competition.
They lost to Arizona. They were up by 9 in that game with 1 minute and 30 seconds left. They lost that game. They really lost it. And you know what? Indiana lost to Wisconsin at home.
That's true.
That's a bad loss. If you can be exposed like that, the score was 64-59. You score 59 points at home, you're not the number 1 team in the country.
That's true. I mean, I'm not going to fault them that. That was a bad loss for Wisconsin, but Wisconsin has always played them tough. I believe they've won like the last 6 games in Indiana in itself. I think that their depth is a lot more there. They're a traditional powerhouse, just like Florida, but they're just going to be really hungry this year, and I like their coach, Tom Crean, a lot. He's very motivational and really good with the X's and O's in terms of making in-game adjustments. I just think Indiana's the better team inside and out. And I think they're going to prove it come March, because I definitely think they're going to take it off.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Indiana's schedule and the conference they're in they play teams that, in my opinion, are a lot more talented.
Right.
And so, yeah, they could be knocked off any week because, in my opinion, they're playing the tougher teams. Yeah. I think if Florida was in this conference and facing the schedule that Indiana was, I don't think that they would be as successful. Yeah. So as far as making it to the end tournament, I think Florida has a great chance because of their conference. But I think if we're just talking about talent, I do think that Indiana is the better team. I like their coach. So I'm just going to have to go with Indiana. I think they're the better team, but at the same point, I think they are kind of at risk of getting knocked off, because Michigan, Ohio State, huge powerhouses.
Right.
That it's kind of like a coin toss. You know, they play one day, Michigan could win. The next day, Indiana could win.
I don't know if anybody's looked at the scores of the Florida games, but they won their last 10 games by an average of 26.5 points a game. That's a lot, no matter what conference you're in. That's home and away. So, but to be honest with you, I think Michigan's better than Indiana. I think Michigan will end up being number 1 again before
I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan knocks them off.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even. Let me rephrase that. I won't be surprised if Michigan beats them. I say knock them off like it's going to be, bomb shelf, top shelf. No.
Well, they played over the weekend, and Indiana won by like 5 at home. Granted, I mean home court advantage, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Indiana has
I
a
think it
really
was
great home court
71-63.
advantage, but I mean, I definitely too like Michigan as well. But in terms of right now, for the time being, I think Indiana is the best team in the nation, and I think they're warranted for the #1 ranking.
What's ironic is Michigan was favored
I know.
at Indiana. So the odds makers think that Michigan's a better team than Indiana. Indiana went out and disproved that, but I mean, they beat them by 8, but Michigan should have not been favored at Indiana.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I guess we're split on this. We're going to go with Indiana. Y'all are going with Florida. But I guess time will tell, and we'll see.
Yep.
But thank you all for tuning into the Blue Wave Sports Show this week. We'll catch you next time.